Hi guys, how you doing? Congratulations to Charles Leclerc for the race today. Been quite a minute, not had the video for like 2 days or so. Just getting better. You guys are the reason why we keep moving. Aside from the qualifying yesterday, it was a great qualifying, seeing the Mercedes coming back to dominate after dominating the sprint with Kimi Antonelli. Came back to get the pole position, putting the two Ferraris behind him and his teammate in fourth position. We already knew it was a race between the Mercedes and the Ferrari today. Ferrari winning the race, great one, tactical understanding from the Ferrari, because they were able to come out. Though they didn't say that was what they did, but when you look at it, Ferrari came out on one thing. Whoever leads holds the Mercedes driver behind for some time, so to gain position. That was what they did. And immediately Charles Leclerc led. Lewis Hamilton stayed behind, gave him the space, fought Kimi Antonelli. From the learnings they had earlier on Saturday morning during the sprint, he was able to hold him back for some time, and that was it for Charles Leclerc. Ferrari played the strategy, Mercedes played the strategy. But unfortunately, the motorsport natural disasters came in. And what was the natural disaster? The car broke. And Kimi Antonelli's car breaking puts Mercedes in a very unfortunate situation, and they were only able to get a driver to get 1 point out, which looks not really good for them after they all sacrificed everything they've been able to put into the race to make sure they had a good race. I believe they could still have achieved more, but unfortunately that was not where they were able to get to today. But we keep coming back to what the F1 FIA needs to do about the rules, but we'll talk about the rules later. Great racing for Ferrari. Great win. Lewis Hamilton on the podium, 16 podiums in Silverstone. A lot of people will look at it. Why did they pick Lewis Hamilton? He could have stayed on the tire. He could have gotten the second position. But the reality is, you don't learn from the future, you learn from the past. And I think they were able to learn from the past. When you look at what happened in Abu Dhabi 2021, I think Ferrari went into change the tires and get back on track and do the last duel. It was on a much more fresher tires, faster tires, soft tires. He could have overtaken George Russell if the race had started. But another thing is, why didn't he pit first when he had the chance to pit? The problem was, when the accident had happened, he had passed the pit lane. He had to go round again. His teammate was about 20-something seconds ahead of him. So while Charles Leclerc was turning back, he was able to get into the pit, but he was really ahead. So he had to go back, and George Russell jumped him at that point. So that is racing. You learn from the past. Like I said, you don't learn from the future. And the length and the race, for me, I think that is why Formula E looks different and more interesting. Formula E, they could have added 1 or 2 more laps. And I think these are the things Formula One should also look into, because it makes it, there's no grandstand finishing, there's no adrenaline finish in some races like that, because it looks dull when they have to finish the race under a safety car. It doesn't make sense. People have come to watch the race, to see the drivers duel, race until the end. Let the winner be decided by their drive and the car and their skills, not by safety car. And I think the race could have ended with a 1 lap race if they had just gone on like that to finish the race, or probably add one more lap, let the lap drivers go round. And they've gone round. They've not totally gone back to meet the other cars, but I don't see anywhere in the race in which they could have met them on the way. There is no way. The stewards did what they had to do, and these are the mistakes that keeps crawling up in Formula One that makes it look like sometimes the rules are inconsistent. It's all being this and that, and I think they can do more. They need to correct a lot about the rules. The same way we saw last week about George Russell taking the pole position under a single yellow flag or a double yellow flag. The same thing we saw today with Lewis Hamilton. So he maintained his third position, but the rules are not clear. You cannot put a green flag out there when the drivers can see it, and he's having yellow flags on his steering wheel. It's confusing. I think they need to do more. Relaying information and messages takes time. This, I think they've gone way ahead of, but they're still having issues with relaying information to drivers and to the stewards. It's just complicated, because Lewis Hamilton was having the yellow flags. He was not even sure if it was a double yellow or a single yellow on the steering. And while he checked it, he didn't see. He looked up, he saw the green flag. He was going down. He checked again. He saw the yellow flag. Though he didn't get a penalty for it. George didn't get the penalty for his last week. Though he thought he would get it, but unfortunately he didn't get it. But I think FIA can do more. And also to Kimi Antonelli's penalty, I think going off the track, there were no advantages for him. In short, he was losing time, but was not gaining any driving advantage. Why would they have been gotten a 5 seconds penalty in which he was driving? He stayed there just to get, even if it is 1 point, and at the end of the day was disappointed because they took that 1 point away from him because they said he went off the track and gained advantage. I think those rules should be spelled out, because when you're not getting advantage on such why do you get penalties? Yes, he was struggling with his car balance because there was something stuck in the front diffuser. He was unable to turn the car. So what else would they have done? He wanted to stay there to get points, but unfortunately, he could not even get the point. So the reason why he stayed on the track was defeated because, for me, I think FI needs to do more with this. They need to do more. And what a disappointing race for Max Verstappen. He lost it and pinched the car. He's had a good race all through. I had a chat with one of my biggest fans on Instagram, and he was like, Max Verstappen is the greatest driver of all time, or something like that, that I'm not giving him his accolades. Probably because of a video that I released, that he might not win a championship again. But sincerely, Max Verstappen, have all my respect. He is a fantastic driver. He is one of the greatest drivers of all time. And drivers make mistakes. He's somebody that really makes mistakes. Max Verstappen really makes mistakes. That's how talented he is. And I put him in the likes of Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, Ayrton Senna, and Prost. These guys are great. Some people may not like Prost being in the greats, but Prost is a great driver. Ayrton Senna, those guys are legends. But drivers do have their likes and their dislikes in cars. This set of rules in cars, Max Verstappen is not a fan of these cars. And when a driver is not a fan of a certain particular kind of car, it takes them time to adjust. And the time they are adjusting, they are changing their driving style, bringing their muscle memory back into a lot of things, takes them time, and that is what Max Verstappen is going through with his cars. He doesn't like the cars, and he's trying to get acquainted with the car to like the car by force. Look at when Lewis Hamilton came in 2022 to 2025. He never liked those cars, the ground effect cars. They were not his type of car because the two teams he drove for did not put the ground effect cars the way he would have wanted to drive the car. He loved a front-ended car, but the funny thing is, he was driving for two teams that had different drivers that had different pattern of cars they drive. You understand? Meanwhile, Red Bull had just a single driver in Max Verstappen that focus on, this is the way this guy drives, this is the way this guy is going to be. Any other driver that wants to come into this team drives this way. But in Mercedes then, George Russell is a driver that loves a very smooth car. Very, very smooth. Lewis wants a car that drives like a Max Verstappen car that is much more front-ended. But what did Mercedes do? They brought the seat forward to make it a front-end car. It's funny, but that was their mistake. Before they could correct and everything, time was gone. And when he moved to Ferrari, the same thing. He was not having the type of front end and the type of brake he needed for the car. And he never liked it. And we saw it. A lot of people said, oh, he's the worst driver, is this, is that. He came back and he's the new team. He's doing well. If Max Verstappen is having some bad days, it's not that he's not a good driver. These rules, he can move to another team and they don't give him the kind of car he wanted. Now he's going through a whole lot of hell in Red Bull. Putting the car into the wall today looks extraordinary because that is unlike Max Verstappen. He would not do that purposefully. And it's because something is happening. Probably the steering or the transmission was unable to select something and everything just went a hole for him. Max Verstappen, let me say it again for my fans, he is a fantastic driver. He's one of the greatest drivers we've seen in F1. Don't take it for less. He's a great driver. He's facing a time in F1 that the cars or the way the cars are designed do not suit his driving style. So I think that is where the lucky number is not. But it's a day for not to be, but to be for Ferrari. And Ferrari did a great job. Though it was not perfect, but it did a great job. Aja, great driver, maintained his composure, was able to bring the car home, did a good job. He's been performing wonders, neck on neck with Max Verstappen in some races. Sometimes he loses it. He's still young, but he's been given a huge back-to-back performance for that team. And so to say, I would say Mercedes needs to look in some part of their mistakes they've made this year, because if they keep bolting races like this, the last two races, Kimi Antonelli had not had the best time. Also, there were races in which George Russell had it twice. So these losses could give another team an opportunity to capitalize, because if Mercedes keep falling apart like this, they're just opening the doors for Ferrari. I know Ferrari will keep improving. Ferrari, they still have a lot to learn from their data and how they need to make the car faster. Also, McLaren are still learning. McLaren will be bringing their biggest upgrade very soon. And when McLaren bring upgrades, they don't miss. They are one of the teams on the grid that when they bring the upgrades, they don't miss. They make sure they maximize everything. They work on their upgrades. They bring it once and boom, not a miss. And it works. So I think at this point, Mercedes need to look at what they are doing and be sure if they are not going in the right direction. Because if they keep making these unnecessary mistakes, it's going to crawl back at them. And when it crawls back at them, it's not going to be funny. So Mercedes needs to do something about the little mistakes they are heaping on themselves. They're doing a great job, a terrific job, but they need to look at those mistakes. Those mistakes are not funny. It might put them in a very difficult position. So McLaren, yes, the bring upgrades is going to work, but hope is not going to get late. And by the time they're bringing upgrades, will they be able to compete or fight? Because for a team like Ferrari don't, they are not looking back on upgrades. They are maximizing their potentials on the car to make sure the car is faster and the car is better. So also Red Bull are doing a great job because they need to keep Max Verstappen in that seat. If they can't keep him in that seat, then they've lost. They've bolted. They've made a huge mistake. One of the things they are fighting for is to keep Max Verstappen in the seat while trying also to gain some maximum points in the drivers and constructors championship. That's going to speak for them. But to the other teams, let me talk about Aston Martin. They're bringing upgrades soon, but it's been a woeful season for them, a tremendously woeful season for them. And I think they might come back to have good times, but this is not speaking well of the billions they've spent in the last 2 years to get where they are. Cadillac has done a great job. We saw them perform today. They had a great race in the cooler conditions, better conditions for them, and they performed so well. But to Williams, I think Williams also, we need to look back at the little times they've had and they've missed, because it's not been a great one for them. Climbing on DNFs, penalties, this is just making the team look like a joke. And I think at this point, they need to go back to the drawing board. Probably next year. This year might not be their year because they might have made a lot of mistakes in their car design. It's not the engine, it's the car. They need to go back and look at the design and get back ASAP, because I don't see anybody chasing down Racing Bull. I don't see anybody chasing, as in the only team that can be closer to Racing Bull is Audi. And Audi is doing a terrific job, though they had their own DNF today with Hulkenberg. But it's going to speak well when we see Williams, after their ups and downs, the money they've spent, the new money they've gotten, and now still where they are is not speaking well, especially for Carlos Sainz that they've signed. They might lose Carlos Sainz if they keep going in this direction they are going, because no good driver wants to stay in a team that is not moving anywhere. That's the truth. As a driver, you don't want to stay in a team that is not going anywhere. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Williams do and how they fight back. As it's been having some bad races recently, and I think they can do better, though it's a very tight space, racing against Racing Bull that are in form, real form. They need to get something right and get it right fast, because if they don't get it right, it's going to mess their season up. They've not had some maximum points, but they've not been doing too bad. And Gasly raising the standard for Alpine, doing a quite great job for them. And Colapinto, I think we are getting to see much of Colapinto this season, and Colapinto is doing a great job. Let's see what comes up in Hungary, the next race, and hope to catch you guys in Hungary. Thank you for staying tuned. I love you guys. See you in the next race.